Good morning and welcome to our January session of asking me, the leader of BCP Council, your questions. So my name's Drew Mellor and I am the leader of BCP Council and really pleased to be back here with you today. This is our first session of 2023 and we're really keen to get going. Thank you to everybody who has sent questions in for today's sessions already. We're going to run through those questions first, and we'll get through as many of those questions as possible, and then we will be looking for any questions that have been submitted live today as well. So if you don't get an answer directly today, I can assure you that our live Q&A team here at the council will send a response through as soon as you can. So please get asking questions, and we look forward to getting to them. We've been doing a number of theme sessions, so we take a theme and we spend some specific time with it, and then open up a bit further to more general questions. Today's session isn't themed, so once we've worked through the pre-sent questions, we will you can ask a question on absolutely anything. Our next session in February is going to be themed around the budget. So effectively, we've got our budget for next year, 23-24. We'll be publishing, I believe it's on Friday, and then we can have a full session where you can ask me any questions you like in terms of our budget proposals. Just before we move on, thank you to anybody who has taken part in our budget consultation. So an engagement exercise we did just before Christmas, about 5-6 weeks. Really rich feedback for that, and we're making sure that does shape our budget. So thank you, and I look forward to speaking to everybody next month when we get the opportunity to do that as well. So please look out on our social channels and in the media for publications of that session. Okay, so let's get to the questions we've already had submitted. I've got a question from Kathy Cronin. Sorry, Kathy Cronin-Sweeney. What are we going to do about potholes? Kathy, thank you so much for the question. We put forward in our last budget, so this time last year, we put forward a pothole fund effectively. So on top of what we normally do with potholes, I believe it was an extra £600,000. And in the last 12 months, we've had it's about 2,500 public reports of so either online or through our customer contact centre, and of potholes. And 1,000 of these have been reported since the beginning of this year, effectively. We've had a real issue across the country of potholes in terms of the amount of rain and flooding, and then freezing temperatures means we've got quite a number of potholes at the moment. We're moving forward as quickly as we can. The best way to get these is to report them in. So please do let us know, and we get to them as quickly as we can. We're looking at the budget this year again. Do we need to go further in terms of extending the pothole fund? And what I've asked the team to do is to consider, because we have such an issue right now because of the weather, the freezing and the flooding, what we can do before next year's budget to address it. So we put more money in. We've repaired, I think it was 9,800 highway defects in the last 12 months. So some of those are potholes, curb repairs, drainage, road patches, etc. So the team are busy, but we've got a problem now. Not asking people to officers to work out how we can address that more quickly now, and as well as looking forward to the budget. Can we put even more money than we did last year into it? Okay, thank you very much for the question, and you've got the report it function up there, so please do report them in. Move now to I believe it's Sharon Hunt. And this is about the what was the rationale for applying for seafront regeneration in the levelling up bid? Why was it the most important project to apply for? What other projects did we apply for? Well, first of all, Sharon, I'll get to that. Just really good news that the government had a national competition amongst local authorities for levelling up bids. So it's about £2 billion the government put in, and then local authorities had to bid against a certain set of criteria. We submitted 3 bids. And we're really pleased that one of those bids was successful. A number of local authorities, were not successful. So we've won. I believe it's about £18 million, which is around one of our bids, which was for the seafront. So across BCP, work we need to do on our seafront. Sharon, we did put, I said, 3 bids. 2 other bids. One was for Hamworthy, so effectively a regeneration and housing project we wanted to bring forward in Hamworthy. You'll know we've got the former power station site. We've got the inland home scheme, which we're doing 160 local homes for local people, and we wanted to do more work alongside that. That wasn't successful with government, and we also had a bid for Poole Town Centre. Effectively, so we called that the Lighthouse Quarter. So the bus station, Lighthouse, and trying to really revamp that area, much needed. Those two bids weren't successful. There's still key regeneration priorities. So we will now look to see how we can fund and bring those forward ourselves. But in specifically, the bid we did win, so £80 million we've won from government, which will go across our seafront. They delivered that bid, obviously delivered against the government's levelling up. They call it levelling up missions. So it's things like improved living standards, digital connectivity, health and wellbeing, pride in place, crime, etc. And we feel it delivers along that. We're seeing throughout the country a lot of seaside towns are not having investment, and then there's a bit of a terminal decline. We're not going to, we think our seafront is one of our best assets, and we need to keep investing in it. And by government supporting this, us putting some money into it as well, it should enable the jobs and the tourism and our enjoyment for local people. So we think it's really important. We think seafront's one of our priorities. But just to be clear, Sharon, we are also looking at a couple of other things in Poole which we wanted to bring forward as well. Unfortunately, this time they weren't successful, but work carries on with them. Okay, fine. So we've got a question from Andrew Hardman. Why is the council taxpayers' money, £1.5 million, designated to assist a private enterprise company fulfil its franchise obligations, and namely the lifts at Folkestone Station? Okay, thanks for the question. So just to recap on this, there was long been a campaign in Folkestone and Boscombe, effectively for accessible lifts in that train station. There are a number of train stations across BCP that don't have accessible lifts. The private company and Network Rail effectively had put some money in which is the point you're making about franchise obligations. Andrew had put some money in to get those lifts. That was not enough money, so we had a choice as a council. Did we want to find a way of supporting that important local infrastructure, more accessible lifts, or that money would have been lost effectively? So South West Rail and Network Rail. So what we decided to do is said, look, this is an important project. We brought forward a £50 million infrastructure fund called the Futures Fund, and we were happy to commit some money to that, as long as, and this actually, us committing to that, got some extra money. Tobias Elwood, the MP for Bournemouth, managed to negotiate with the then Minister for Transport, Grant Shapps, to get some extra money. So effectively, you had the pot of money that was already committed from, I believe it's South West Rail. Then you had Network Rail, which Tobias Elwood was able to negotiate and bring in, and then we were able to match fund. So Andrew, so we think it's important. We think it's part of local infrastructure. We wanted to get it done. We wanted to bring that money from government and South West Rail into the local area, and we think it will have a benefit for local people. And we're expecting, I believe we're expecting in sort of autumn of this year, that project to move forward in terms of all of the survey work to being done. So that was the reasons for the decisions, Andrew, and we were happy to make them. Okay, so then we move to is it Aiden? Yeah, Aiden Clubley around why has the council wasted £176,000 on a restaurant to be open for just 1 month? Thanks, Aidan. So just to give a bit of context to this, so we put a number of pop-up restaurants and supported a number of pop-up restaurants along the seafront this summer. A lot of them really well used and well received. In total, we made significant profit from doing that across the board. But this is a trial. We've been doing a trial. So this particular restaurant we open up for the Air Festival. And it's a very high quality offering. What we wanted to do was to extend it and see if that was a strong restaurant offering to bring going forward. That particular site didn't make money, but across the board our other sites did. So we're really pleased to see a lot more happening on the seafront. Now we've effectively had a couple of years of trialling some of the some of the offerings, and some fantastic offerings we've got. Some of them very successful. We're now looking to ask the council to do some more longer term. So where it works, let's do more of it. Let's allow better quality, longer term investment. Effectively, but that one specifically didn't make money for us. So it's not all about making money in terms of the idea around those pop-up restaurants. It's part about making sure we've got offerings and and enjoyment, and by investing now, hopefully in longer term we will be getting more out of our seafront. But this specifically wasn't successful, and we're not looking to repeat that one. Okay, I've got a question now from Steve Hayes around beach huts. Just a quick point, actually, I should have mentioned at the start of this. We some of these questions have been asked are very, very long. So if you're seeing something slightly different, it's been taken from your question. I know Steve wrote a very long question, and our comms team have obviously they need to fit it on the screen effectively. So an annual rent license for a beach hut in Sandbanks. How much annual income is estimated to be raised from BCP beach huts in 23-24? So effectively, I mean, it's just under, I believe it's just under £6 million in terms of the income for beach huts across BCP. We have expenditure against that. It was in the region of around about £3 million. So there is a surplus that we do, which we make from the beach huts, and then that goes back into our core services pot, which we've been able to invest in, things like adult social care and children's services across our other services. So Stephen, that's the answer to your question. There was a more detailed question, which I want to make sure you get a detailed reply to all of those points in your question. Thank you. Okay, next question is Christine O'Grady. Why are you running this session during the daytime? Yeah, I mean, it's Christine. It's really it's a fair point. All of these sessions are people are able to put questions in advance, and they are repeated, and they're online, so effectively, so people can access them at different points. If people want to watch them live, obviously it's it's 11 o'clock now, which is in the daytime. So that is that is not able to be as easily done for some people. We take that on board. We've done sessions before, particularly with the Police and Crime Commissioner, where we've run them in the evening, so we can absolutely look to put one of those in going forward, Christine. But yeah, we're trying to, these are effectively new sessions for the last few years. Hopefully people appreciate that we're trying to find different ways to communicate and really make that a real priority. And we'll always listen to feedback, Christine, about how we can do that better. So we'll look to see whether there's some willingness from the public for us to explore evening sessions as well. Okay, Rupert Miles, what specific actions will you be taking to revive Bournemouth Town Centre full of empty shops, etc.? Okay, yeah, so it's really important question, Rupert, and challenging. The future of high streets, in particular, is challenging, not just for us but across the country. We're seeing the experience change in terms of people are less using town centres and high streets purely just for retail. We've since the internet and COVID definitely advanced this. There's been less retail. We've seen some of our larger retail people move and leave. So that it's changing. And what we've done a number of things. We've worked really hard on our community safety officers, and we've now got a much safer town centres, which we're pleased with. So we've invested in that safety element. We've been investing significant money in what we've called cleaner, greener, safer. So where we've been looking how we can make sure our town centres and the whole places are cleaner. And we've had some good feedback from the bids that we're doing well on both of those. We've also put in on some more of our smaller town high streets. Effectively, we've done 3 pilot projects. Our lead member we put in lead member for high street rejuvenation in Nigel Brooks, and so I believe that was Highcliffe, Kinson and Broadstone. So we've done 3 pilot projects where we've looked to see how we can deliver more energy into there as well. So they've been successful, and we're now going to look to roll that out. We're looking in our budget round at the moment to see if we can bring a high street fund effectively in. Your specific point was more around empty shops, and how we can be an incubator effectively to work with shop owners to enable us to open up more shops, or provide a little bit like what has been done in Poole. And effectively the shops at the Dolphin Centre outside have been a Kingland, have been able to give rent-free periods to encourage shopping. So we're looking to do a number of things. We're not there yet. It's a challenging environment. One of the things I think is really important is regeneration. It's bringing more housing into town centres, so more people are in town centres. You've got more 15-minute, they're called sort of 15-minute cities, where effectively you can get everything you need walking in a 15-minute. So we're doing that. We're interested and pleased to see there's a massive regeneration scheme got approved at our planning committee last week, which should have some real impact in rejuvenating and regenerating Bournemouth Town Centre in particular. So significant work we are doing. We by no means are we there yet. I think partly what we're talking about as a more generally is having ambition for the place and keeping investing. So, for instance, we supported the giant art gallery, amazing art gallery, which is above Bobby's, because we're trying to make sure we've got those types of places can be supported. People to come in and feel rejuvenated with the high street. So, sorry, long-winded answer, but there's a lot we are doing. But Rupert, you're right. There's a lot more that needs to happen, both by us and the external market. Okay. So then we got a question from Fiona Orme, which is, let me just read that out. Yes. When will the parks regeneration scheme start to take place? Opinions and consultations on it last summer, and absolutely no word since that anything will change. Yes, Fiona, thanks for this. Huge amount of work going on in terms of that parts consultation. What we've done now is we're pulling all of that together. We're working with the I forget the name of it. I think it's the Parks Foundation, who have done some fantastic work. In terms of some of the things that are enabling in our parks. That will be played back to us, and then we look to what physical improvements and schemes we can put in place, Fiona. So it's a case of watch this space. I mentioned a little bit earlier on around our Futures Fund, which is a £50 million of infrastructure funding we can put in where we choose. It's great when we win money from the government, but if we were just waiting to hit the criteria from government, then we wouldn't move a lot of other projects forward. So what we've wanted to do, Fiona, was to make sure there is funding, or there will be funding for the right things to come forward. But the right thing for us there was to consult properly, and then it will be coming forward later on in this year. Okay, yeah, still on the questions from pre-submitted questions. So I've got a question from Lucy Allen about Harbourside Park. Lucy, thank you very much for the question. Again, this question's been cut down slightly, but the theme of this should be the same. Will the Harbourside Park draft master plan now be able to go to full plan and implementation using the recent Levelling Up Fund? Some great work's been happening in Harbourside. It's developed, over time through a series of sort of single improvements, and we've really felt it needed that more strategic and holistic plan, which pulls all those different aspects together. And the work to produce that master plan has been carried out by I believe it's ECA Architecture and Planning. Yes, yeah, I think it is. Follows, some really extensive consultation and engagement with the public. So again, thank you to anybody who's fed into that. ECA will be producing the strategic plan, which will then be able to take through and have a weighted document that we'll be able to use, and we will take that forward, through the council. In terms of the specific Levelling Up funding, we had to bid against, so we had to be quite explicit about what that funding was going to be used to do. So there's, for instance, some harbour defence work in Hamworthy. There's some work on the Eastcliff List. There's some work on the Bournemouth Pier. There's some work across our beach hut stop. public toilets we'll be replacing and upgrading effectively. So we've had to be quite clear on what we're spending that money on. Government have given us that money to spend it on that. So there will be parts, that will link in, but it would be more across the wider seafront rather than the harbour side itself. So I guess there's two answers to the question. One, yes, that is coming forward, and we will take that fully through the process. My expectation is that will be this year. But then secondly, it's unlikely that funding will be specifically related to harbour side because, as I've said before, there's been other key criteria which we match with the government's criteria to get that 18 million. Okay, thank you for the question, Lucy. Then we're going to move to a question from, I believe it's Judy Winwood, which talks about active travel. So, Judy, thank you for the question. You're absolutely right. The assumption in that question is the congestion is an issue in BCP. It is. I believe we are the fourth most great transforming travel.info. So we've got a massive scheme of around about £100 million worth of work, and the best place to find information about that is transformingtravel.info. Congestion is an issue for us. I believe we're the fourth most congested town in the country. So in some of the things, driving that, sorry, pardon the pun, it's our population growth. So our population has risen by about 20% in the last 20 years. And we estimate there's been an extra about 8% of vehicles have added to our roads. And we already had quite, packed roads, and adding more vehicles to it really does start to cause problems. Two choices, really. We can allow it to get worse and just sit by, or we can try and offer some fast and safe alternatives. The phrase we've been trying to use, Judy, is your travel, your choice. And that is about promoting active travel. That's not to say we want to get people out of their cars. We want anybody who wants to be able to use or needs to use a car, we need them to be able to do it, efficiently. So if there are people who are currently using cars who prefer to use active travel, walking, cycling effectively, we need to give them the opportunity to do that. So those of us, I've got two young children, it's very, very difficult. I find it very difficult to move around often without a car. But then at certain points, I'm perfectly happy to cycle if I'm not with the kids. So it's allowing that freedom and flexibility. And what we've seen, Judy, is if you can just move a very small few percentage of people into walking or cycling for the times of day and the uses that they want to do that, it makes a massive difference in terms of the wider network, and all our modelling suggests that. So that's effectively what we're trying to do, Judy. So it's very difficult. We don't have the funds to go and build more roads, and also government are very clear that the evidence says building more roads isn't ultimately a solution, because the cars will just fill it up. So it's how we can do things like make it more dense living in our town centres, so people don't need to use cars. 15-minute city again, or 15-minute towns, everything's within in walkable distance. It's stuff like how we can provide walking, cycling if we need to, if we can do, and councils just don't have the money to do major infrastructure projects like building roads. So we've had to respond to what the government have suggested, where we've been able to bring forward £100 million of money through our transforming travel. Okay, I believe that was the majority of the questions. There was one question, again, it's slightly awkwardly written, but around Carter's Quay, talking about what are we doing around Carter's Quay, which is it's about 160 homes we're building there. So these will be, again, local homes for local people. Things are really important. We've got our housing strategy says we need to build more and we need homes across BCP. This is a really great regeneration area to build it in, so we're really positive about doing that. And ultimately, once it's built, these will be homes that we will own as a council, so we'll be in a position to either use, to rent out to the open market, which will hopefully provide us good income going forward, or if we need to do other things within our housing stock, we've got the freedom and flexibility to do that. Okay, right. Let me go to the questions that have been submitted while we're talking, and there have been a number that have been submitted. So let me just move those forward on my screen. Okay. Okay, so fine. So we've got right. I'm not going to answer to if the questions that was written specific, like Jeanette Helston's answered one about the traffic lights on Magna Road. And let me get you a specific answer for that, Jeanette, rather than me have a generic answer now. Okay. So then we've got fine. Okay, so I've got a question from Nick Finnemore. First and foremost, it's 11:02. The cost of living. Please update us with what low-cost schemes are in place. Personally, I've applied for a CAB. I've been advised that, understandably, it will take up to 12 weeks for an answer. Okay, Nick. Well, thank you very much for the question. We ran a session about the cost of living crisis, one of these theme sessions, and we actually had the Citizens Advice Bureau online for that. Hugely, great work they're doing. You've done exactly the right thing by, and thank you very much. We've got the details up now. Please do contact them. I'm not hearing that on a regular basis people are being asked to wait 12 weeks for an answer. If that is the case, please feel free to email me as well. So drew.mellor@bcpcouncil.gov.uk. If there's anything expressed that needs, there's a problem with. We're always saying, ask for help earlier. Ultimately, we've been able to passport a significant sum of money from government. And you can sort all of our cost of living advice there. So there are a number of things. We have a look at our cost of living website, and Nick, we appreciate you. It's a difficult time for a lot of people and families, and ask for that advice early. And if there's anything specific, please feel free to come to me, and we can always try and move you to the right solution. Okay, we've got a question about bus lanes. I'm not going to talk about that. We've already had Transforming Travel's website up. Look at that website for updates. It's clear now where all bus lanes and cycle lanes are coming in on that. Okay, so then we're. Okay, so then we've got a question about our scrutiny arrangements council. So 1104 from Malik Kudmani, I believe that's the question. So we've adapted our scrutiny arrangements over the last couple of years. Effectively, we've now moved to a situation where we've got 4 scrutiny committees. So we've got more scrutiny committees. Some really good work happening there as well now, where we've actually run a number of, for instance, on the budget specifically, we put an extra report every month, over the autumn, and scrutiny arranged to see that. So we're actually seeing more scrutiny than ever. We've asked for a review of. A governance review, a part of our capitalisation direction work we've been doing. So we've got that, and that'll be published as well. So an external review. We've had a peer review which talks about the quality of our scrutiny arrangements as well. So effectively, I think we have moved forward significantly in terms of scrutiny. We're really keen to it, and it adds value as and when it's done. So Malik, thank you for your question. Okay, so okay, so specific questions again. We're trying to come back to specifically around specific blocks of flats, etc. Okay. So James Platt, 1107. I'm interested to know why the 2 bids that would have addressed key local needs weren't successful. You're saying were successful. I think you mean weren't successful. Whereas a bid around seafront regeneration was. James, we were. It's an interesting one. There's been a lot of discussion nationally about is making councils bid for money the right solution, effectively, competing against each other. Other people can comment on that. We were delighted to win £20 million, best part of £20 million from government for that scheme. It's a really good scheme. Our officers did a fantastic bid, and I do believe it will support our economy going forward. So I think that is a strong bid, and I'm pleased we've won it. We've made no secret of our desire to regenerate Poole Town Centre. I think it's something that's massively needed, and one of the reasons why we brought forward Future Places, so a genuinely high calibre team of regeneration experts to move that forward. It would have been great if we'd won some funding to springboard that. The bids that we put forward were against the criteria that the government set out. And obviously one of them was successful. Two of them weren't. Ultimately, the minister, Dehenna Davidson, was the ultimate arbiter, along with her civil servants, of those bids. And effectively, we're pleased with the ones we did win, but we'd have rather won some more. What it does mean, though, is now we're just going to double down our efforts in terms of regeneration and how we can move those schemes forward. So what we're going to do is, if there are pots of money there, we're going to try and win them, but we're not going to wait for pots of money. We're going to try and do things ourselves. So James, I was disappointed as well. We'd have loved to have won all three bids, but as I said earlier, a number of authorities didn't win any at all. Okay, so Michael Connolly, 1107, the public consultation for the new local plan clearly identifies that residents are in favour of protecting the green belt. Michael Gove instructed local planning authorities are now not expected to review the green belt to deliver housing, and Councillor Broadhead has already advised do not lose a green belt. So I've lost the rest of the question. So what I'm going to do is talk about, green belt. Yeah, absolutely agree. In terms of how we can protect the green belt, we need to do it. We want to do it. We're adamant that that's effectively what we're going to be. That's very much a feedback from the public. So we won't get to the specific part of your question. I can just assure you that we're very much in agreement with Michael Gove. Incidentally, actually, Michael Gove was outlining what he expects to see councils doing as well, and in terms of quality development, and very much what we've done with our Future Places team and the work that they put in, particularly over the last 12 months, puts in a really great position to be responding to what Michael Gove's saying, and I think that is that's certainly helpful. So all I can say, Michael, is absolutely you've got my commitment. But when that local plan comes forward, we will be doing everything we can to be not building in the green belt. I've said it a couple of times already, but it's things like that further densification of town centres is really helpful. We need more homes. House prices are expensive. Local people, young people need to be able to get on the housing market. So we need to build more homes, but we need to be building on brownfield sites and in town centres. And that hopefully should allow us to protect our green belt. Absolutely something I know from speaking to him recently on it, Councillor Broadhead is committed to. So thank you very much, Michael. Yes, sorry, James, you've just clarified, but I did get you. We're not successful, right? Thank you. Okay, so Sally Harris, how much funding from the 18 million you've received will be allocated to the coastal areas from Boscombe to Highcliffe? So I don't have that expression in front of me. I know the two major parts of that were effectively the Bournemouth Pier, which needs some significant work to bring that give it longevity, and also the East Cliff lift piece. So we've won separately in terms of Boscombe. We won about £20 million from the Towns Fund. So this has been specifically in and around Boscombe. So across that, there is some real energy and regeneration of energy and money going into. The funding is across BCP, but it's focused on some of the bigger checks are in those areas. But we're really much looking forward to working with communities across BCP, and we've also got, like I said earlier, our Futures Fund. So if there are other investments we feel we need, both in town centres and on the seafront, we want to hear about it, because we want to be able to bring those forward ourselves. But Sally, we can, if you'd like to email me at drew.mellor@bcpcouncil.gov.uk, we can get a full breakdown of effectively what that bid was to you, so you can know the detail of it. Okay. So yeah, questions about Bournemouth Football Club and stadiums. I'm not going to. It's probably not one for me to go into that. We are always keen to work with the football club and in terms of local planning, how we can support that. The Bournemouth Football Club's a fantastic thing for us in terms of our economy. You know, local supporters, but also putting us on the map nationally, so internationally. So any support we can give to that, we will do. Okay, I've answered some questions around shopping from the earlier questions. So you know, it's something we need to really support more of. Okay. Right, let me get to something. Okay, so Lilliput Sea Scouts, we applied for self-funding in 2018, which is 11-12 is question, which was approved. A tiny bit of work was completed by the Borough of Portland in 2019. Whereas the rest of the money ring-fenced to our project gone? Should it still be there? Yeah, absolutely. If you were successfully approved, it should be. The fact that that's in a different council shouldn't make any difference. What would be really helpful, could somebody, so I keep putting my email address up, but if somebody could email me directly on that, I'll personally look into it. We've been doing some work with a number of organisations like Sea Scouts more recently, where we've said that's fantastic. You know, the volunteer network that Sea Scouts or a number of organisations. So we're hoping to bring forward a fund on top of CIL, effectively, where we can an outside expressly of the Futures Fund, where we can support those places where you've got fantastic volunteer groups doing fantastic work. But they might need more support from us in terms of capital projects. So really important that we make sure you've got the funds you need, and we really want to hear from other local volunteer groups and like Sea Scouts and other clubs that we can support, because it's more and more difficult for us to be providing the services. But often, nearly always actually, the best people to be providing the services are people really strong volunteer groups who have very popular and a great membership. And if we could just help them more, then we become more of an enabling council, which means hopefully we can keep providing great services for people going forward. Okay, so then let me get to, we're running out of time slightly. Nigel P. Hatchard, 1114. Will the seafront at Hamworthy Park be repaired this year? Really positively, some of the £18 million does include for Hamworthy seafront. Haven't got the exact details, but that new money that the government has given us, some of that is for Hamworthy. So just thank the local councillors there. Mike White, Dan Butt, Julie Bagwell all do an exceptional job in terms of making sure the issues and opportunities around Hamworthy we're aware of, and I'm great that we've managed to win some money through it. So okay, so yeah, let me do last couple of questions I'll try and get through. Okay, so yeah, interesting question. 1118, Neil Matthews. Why did the council go against the recommendation of planning officer and approve the building at Glenfern Road? I've sort of referenced this a couple of times before, actually, in terms of planning. As leader of a council, planning is absolutely nothing we get involved in as an administration. It has to be separate to the administration. It's not a political thing. The officers will make judgments, and I've sat on planning for a number of years before I was the leader of a council, and it's that weighted balance. So they might say yes, there's some strong arguments to make this to happen. There's some arguments that that suggest that that's challenging, and on balance, I'm either for it or against it. It's never that binary in terms of it's an absolute yes or an absolute no. It's nearly always more nuanced than that. The planning committee then hear the application, hear the arguments, and they say, on balance, against the planning rules and regulations we've got, what's the right thing for us to do? And it was really interesting. I think it was 8-5. So again, it was a well debated item, but but that's now come forward. I'm really pleased. I wasn't close to that scheme, but I'm really pleased to see that some regeneration is happening and at some scale. So hopefully that will, it's fresh money coming into the area. It's more local homes. So ultimately, we want to be buying and building more homes ourselves as a council. We want a market to be doing it as well. So on balance, I'm delighted that there's building happening in there, but obviously I can't comment specifically on that, and it wouldn't be right for me to on the planning. But hopefully that gives you just a little sense, Neil, about how that decision would have been made. Okay, yeah, a couple of questions about Magna Road, actually. Yeah, so we'll make sure we get a specific detailed response from that and played back up here. Okay, so then got a question, Tricia Herco. We at Poole Museum were told last year about plans for the new museum would be working from 2024, and suddenly some staff are in consultation about being made redundant. Okay, so a couple of things to break down here. Obviously, I can't talk about specifics, employment specifics, but I did want to talk about Poole Museum more generally. Awesome that we've won again. I think it's a couple of £1 million, and it's going to be a fantastic facility. And I've had an invitation to go down and see Poole Museum, which I will be doing, and the works and linking into whole Scapman's Court, really important area of Poole. We're doing quite a lot of work on the quay as well, and we have those plans coming forward through future places. What we haven't been able to do is to make to secure a facility to temporarily house some of the Poole stock while that work's going on as an option to keep all of that open. If there are specific staffing implications of that, then there's obviously a process that needs to go through. What we do know is on the outcome of that, Poole Museum, it's going to be an absolutely fantastic facility. I believe it's already the number 1 free attraction in Dorset, and it's going to be much more space, and it's going to be much better. If there are any specific issues, Tricia, that you'd like to email me about, drew.mellor@bcpcouncil.gov.uk, and I'll happily personally look into it. Obviously, any HR issues, there's a process around, but really pleased, keen to be, thank anybody for the work they have been doing on it, and look forward to in the next couple of years when it gets into that stage, but if ultimately less people need to be employed while that work's going on, then we'll hopefully that's done in the right place. Okay, I think that's effectively we're over time in terms of what we budgeted for. I will make sure that and our team will make sure that any of the questions that have been asked here do definitely get replied today. I just want to flag again, please look out for the February session, the theme session, which is going to be about our budget and what we're trying to do around that. So please put some questions in advance on that. And I believe where that's the theme session, that will be an even longer session as well. So thank you, everybody. Probably too late for me to wish anybody a happy new year. But first session for 2023. Really keen we're doing these, and we're doing them every month. We will look, as a person said earlier, about whether we can push these forward into some evening sessions as well. Hopefully the fact that they're available online permanently is helpful as well. Any more suggestions? We'd love to hear from them. Thank you ever so much for everybody's time today, and keep well, and we look forward to seeing you again next month. Thank you.